The smile they showed the world never matched the stomach knot you carried. They looked flawless in car lines and dining rooms, their charm gliding like glass, yet your body kept the receipts. For you, they were a weather system you learned to predict, a pressure drop behind a closed door. This is not a story about bruises alone. It is a split-screen childhood, public applause on one side and private dread on the other. If you have ever swallowed panic in a kitchen while hearing how wonderful they are, you are not broken. You are remembering. Today, we will map the performance, the roles they handed you, and the exit ramp out of the script you never auditioned for. Let us name the engine first. People like this do not just chase admiration. They engineer it. They build a stage, polish props, rehearse lines, and assign parts to everyone around them, especially their kids. Your job was not to grow. It was to keep the set beautiful. Perhaps you were the trophy child, paraded as proof of great parenting. Perhaps you were the convenient culprit, the difficult one who absorbed blame. Perhaps you were the quiet fixer, smoothing sharp edges, translating moods, and keeping peace at any price. Different costumes, same purpose, protect the image. Why does image matter so much? Because beneath the polish sits a shaky core that cannot tolerate being ordinary, wrong, or questioned. Admiration is easier than intimacy, and praise feels safer than truth. So they curate moments that photograph well and ration kindness, where it maximizes witnesses. That is not care. That is reputation management disguised as warmth. When you whispered that something felt off, the crowd's cheer drowned your voice. You were not only contradicted by a parent, you were contradicted by their audience. Here is the brutal twist. When the world claps for your caregiver, you begin to doubt your senses. If the choir sings saint, who are you to say unsafe? Soon you treat visibility like validity. If pain is not on camera, it must not count. That training is more than simple invalidation. It is sabotage of how you know what you know. You borrow their explanations. They are stressed. They had it hard. You are dramatic. This is not gullibility. It is survival logic in a house where honesty costs connection. Pause for a breath. When did you first notice their tone switch in front of others? Was there a day your voice shrank because the nice version had arrived? Let that memory rise without editing. You are allowed to trust yourself now. Now, how does the mask stay polished? 3 levers show up again and again. First is charm coating, the shine of compliments, favors, and social sparkle that disarms suspicion. Second is strategic generosity, gifts and help that arrive when cameras are rolling or when guilt will stick best. Third is borrowed credibility, the recruitment of validators whose testimony will outrank yours before you even speak. Each lever is ordinary alone. Together, they create a velvet-walled fortress. When you bump those walls, there is a script waiting. Do not be sensitive. You should be grateful. Everyone says, I am amazing. The translation is simple. Submit to the brand. The child learns impossible algebra. If the show looks loving, the backstage must be your fault. You begin to carry 2 selves, the performer who smiles and the witness who aches. Let us talk roles again, because roles become identities. Over time, the golden child confuses applause with attachment. The scapegoat confuses constant criticism with clarity and begins to mistake attacks for honest feedback. The invisible peacekeeper confuses silence with safety and cuts off needs to avoid sparks. These are not personality traits. They are survival stances that worked under pressure. Useful then, costly now, here is the cost. You learn to preempt other people's moods, to scan rooms like a smoke detector, to fix what you did not break. You call it maturity. Your nervous system calls it overtime. You rehearse alibis for them and apologies for yourself. Memory edits, feelings defer. You stay small to stay included. Any time you try to say what happened, the invisible jury asks for proof you were never allowed to collect. Let us widen the lens. Why did outsiders miss it? Not because they are monsters, but because comfort rarely investigates. A charming performance fits what people want to believe, and belief is sticky. We're inclined to protect tidy stories, especially about family. Once a reputation feels good to hold, truth that complicates it gets labeled rude. You were turned from witness into warning. Do not be ungrateful. Do not spoil the picture. They were not defending your parent. They were defending their own comfort. When praise piles up, your reality pays. Compliments meant for them land on your tongue as chalk. Each time someone says they are so kind, you swallow more weight. That pressure creates a second injury, not just what you endured, but that no one wanted to know. It is social echo gaslighting, your experience washed out by everyone's need to keep the party pleasant. If you started smiling on command, that was adaptation, not consent. Now let us get practical and forensic. This is how the illusion is built. Set the scene with visible helpfulness, public patience, and curated humility. Control the narrative by telling your struggles loudly and other people's struggles softly. Recruit endorsers whose praise counts more than your pain. Time the kindness with big gestures right after private cruelty, so confusion glues the child's mouth shut. Reward agreement and punish dissent, calling boundaries disrespectful and obedience love. None of this wears a villain's costume. That is why it works. And still there is you. Maybe you defended them to friends. Maybe you mimicked their cool distance because matching them felt safer than confronting them. Maybe you became impressive, invisible, or irritable, anything that kept the ground from shaking. You did it because connection is oxygen, and children will contort to keep breathing. Here is the turning hinge. Strategies that kept you safe then can strangle your life now. You are not in that house anymore, but the house may still live in you. The flinch when footsteps pause, the apology that sprints from your mouth, the way criticism sounds like care. That is not a character flaw. That is conditioning. It deserves care, not contempt. So what do you do with a town that loves your parent and never learned your name? Stop auditioning for their understanding. People committed to a pretty story will demand your collapse before they believe you. You do not owe collapse. You owe yourself steady truth told at volumes that do not cost you sleep. Some will never hold it. That is their limit, not your evidence. Dismantling the illusion is not a dramatic door slam. It is peeling wallpaper and finding rot, slow, methodical, and unspectacular. Expect alarms from your body, guilt, doubt, and the ancient urge to rush back and be easy again. That is withdrawal from a role, not a sign you are wrong. Boundaries here are demolition lines. No is a tool. So is silence. So is leaving the room when conversations become courts. You will grieve not only what happened, but what never happened. The protector who never showed. The apology you rehearsed but never received. The version of family you kept on layaway. That grief is sacred work. It ends the search for a door that does not exist and opens windows you can climb through. Let the fantasy die kindly. It kept you company. It can be buried with respect. Now take the question that kept you stuck and flip it. Why am I waiting to be seen by someone who never learned how? The swap will not erase sadness, but it restores agency. You cannot make someone choose intimacy over image. You can choose it for yourself. Friends who ask better questions, rooms where you are not a prop, relationships that do not require shape-shifting. This is where self-witnessing begins. You are not performing. You are practicing sovereignty. Clarity rarely sounds loud. It simply does not back down. Write the story you lived, even if the only reader at first is you. Say it if you need to. I am done being edited out. Place a few anchors you can actually use. Name the roles you were given, then declare the parts you are retiring. Track where you still over-explain and replace paragraphs with periods. Build a tiny circle that believes you before there is proof. That is how proof grows. When praise for them stings, label it as theater while your body remembers backstage. Practice micro-boundaries with phrases like, "Not discussing that, I disagree, and this is not a good time." Trade relentless empathy for reciprocity. Care that never returns is extraction, not love. A word on compassion without self-abandonment. You may understand why they are the way they are. History, hurt, and hunger for admiration. Understanding is not a hall pass for harm. You can hold context and hold your boundary at the same time. That is not cruelty. That is adulthood. About forgiveness. Think of it as a direction, not a deadline. Sometimes forgiveness is simply refusing to keep performing in their play. Sometimes it is putting a sturdy lock on your peace and letting people knock until they learn a new language. You do not have to announce any of this. You can just live it. So what happens to the mask when you stop feeding it? It slips. The illusion requires cooperation, your silence, your smile, your edits. When those go, the story thins. They may escalate charm offensives, recruit new witnesses, or paint you unkind. Let them paint. Your life is not a courtroom. It is a house you get to furnish with reality. Consider the first moment you notice the mismatch between the public parent and the private one. Hold that scene gently. What did the younger you need right then? Proof, protection, or permission to name it? Give it now in present tense. Tell that kid I saw it, and I am not abandoning you again. That is repair no crowd can offer. Before we close, a note on rebuilding identity. Many survivors confuse intensity with love and calm with boredom. That is normal when your baseline was chaos. Choose calm anyway. Let your days be quiet enough that your instincts stop shouting and start speaking. Let good people be simple. Let your nervous system learn that honesty does not end in punishment. Carry a few lines that travel well. I will not argue my reality with people who need a lie. My peace does not require your permission. If this helped you feel seen, tap like, so the algorithm stops rewarding the masquerade and starts amplifying recovery. There is no channel branding here, just a request to support work that helps more people find their footing. Here is your closing orientation. You were not overreacting. You were overruled. You are not obligated to be a prop in anyone's story. You are allowed to end roles that end you. When you walk away, you do not have to slam a door. You can simply step through a better one. When you build what comes next, do it slowly, so every brick belongs to you. Thank you for staying with your own truth when applause tried to drown it. I'm proud of the version of you that keeps choosing clarity over spectacle. We will keep exploring practical language for boundaries that do not require essays, and we will do it without drama. Here is a practical toolkit, condensed and doable. First, name 3 body cues that mean you are slipping back into the role. Shoulders tensing, voice shrinking, or joking when you want to cry. When you spot one, pause for 10 breaths before responding. Second, write 2 sentences you can use when conversations start to spin. I'm not discussing this today, and we will revisit when we are calm. Practice them out loud until they feel boring. Boring is safe. Third, build a witness file for yourself. Short notes about incidents, feelings, and your interpretation. You do not need it to persuade anyone. You need it to persuade your doubt on hard days. Fourth, curate a micro-circle. 2 or 3 people who believe you on sight. Tell them exactly what support looks like. Listen first. Reflect what you heard. Offer advice only when asked. Fifth, identify a sanctuary space, a park bench, a car seat, or a bedroom corner. Place a small ritual there, a scent, a phrase, or a stretch. Teach your nervous system a path out of alarm. Sixth, Replace doom rehearsals with boundary rehearsals. If you can script a fight in your head, you can script a sentence that preserves you and brings the temperature down. Common objections will arise in your mind. What if I am wrong? What if I am unfair? What if I ruin the family? Those questions are understandable and also incomplete. Ask this too. What if you are right? What if you are finally balanced? What if you save the next generation by refusing the costume? If contact must continue for holidays, caregiving, or logistics, lower the emotional stakes while raising structure. Meet in public places. Time box the visit. Park your car for an easy exit. End calls when the conversation turns into a trial. Send neutral follow-ups in writing. You are not cold. You are careful. Notice how your attention was trained. You learn to track their moods, scan other people's faces, and ignore your inner weather. Bring that attention home. Set 3 reminders across your day with one question. What do I need right now? Water, food, rest, a walk, or permission to say no? Care that arrives on time teaches your body that you are on your own side. Expect pushback. When you change choreography, partners stumble. Some will call your boundaries selfish. Some will call your clarity cruel. Remember that people who benefited from your silence will experience your voice as violence. Stay steady anyway. You are not obligated to bleed just to be believed. A word to those who became a mirror image of the parent to survive, cool, clever, and cutting. That was not moral failure. That was armor. If those edges still slice your relationships, sand them. Apologize where you must, repair where you can, and notice the difference between self-protection and reenactment. 2 practices help untwist approval from love. First is an attention audit. List the people who feel peaceful before, during, and after time together, and keep them close. List the ones who feel tense at one of those stages, and limit exposure without the guilt monologue. Second is a language swap. Trade I have to make them comfortable for I have to stay congruent. Comfort ends when it collides with truth. Congruence keeps you intact. Finally, imagine the day you sit at a table where your story needs no preface, no spreadsheets of proof, and no strategic laughter. Your voice is steady. What will you talk about when you are not busy defending your biography? What will you build when your energy stops patching someone else's mask? Let those answers set your calendar. Let them set your friendships. Let them set your rest.